Hello and welcome back to the When You're podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching Oppenheimer. That's right, everybody. This was part one of Barbenheimer. This was just the start of a great, this is just a great moment for cinema with Oppenheimer and Barbie coming out. Barbenheimer, this one, I started my day off with this movie. Watched it around like 3 p.m. Watched it, had a little bit of a waiting period, and then went to go see Barbie. I mean, such a good time. But anyways, part one of it. So I had no real prior knowledge to Oppenheimer before. I mean, I kind of like, there were some videos about him. Like, people were like, all right, here's what you need to know about Oppenheimer before you, like, watch the movie. Just so that way, like, maybe if you have no prior knowledge or any, like, idea of what he did in his life or, kind of things maybe they don't touch upon in the movie. They had a couple of those videos. And, like, I watched maybe, like, a minute of them. They kind of did like a little bit of background on him and his upbringing maybe and like kind of his college days or whatnot. They don't really explain a whole lot or spoil anything for like the movie, which is like not a spoiler. It's history. You can look this up on your own, but it's just like, I never heard about him. I didn't know what it was about. And, I just kind of wanted to go in blind and see if I could figure it out myself. So we get to the opening scene, or the movie starts, and we see him in college, I think. Or he's in school, essentially. We don't see him as like a kid or a baby or anything. We just see him as this college student, and he's just going to the lab, learning about physics and science, and just, using his mind, but understanding science and doing all of that stuff. I'm trying to explain it in a smart way and I can't, but you know what I'm trying to say. He's in there for science and he's learning, all right? And I guess he kind of gets belittled by his teacher and his classmates, and he just kind of feels like, snap, I hate my life, I hate my teacher, I hate everything. So the teacher had like a apple on the desk. And I come to find out that was like in the movie, he tries to kill his teacher by poisoning the apple. But it was actually, when I looked it up later, they were talking about, it was an experiment to see something. And the professor didn't end up beating it, which was great. Because in the movie, he poisons it, he goes away, and then he's like, oh snap, I left that poisoned apple on my teacher's desk. Let's hope he hasn't eaten it, He gets over there, and then there's a moment where he's like trying to get the apple to throw it away, and I guess one of the other professors or teachers grabbed it, and it looked like he was about to eat it, but Oppenheimer stopped him, got the apple, and threw it away or whatever. So he was a smart guy. He's very smart, but he's got some issues. He's very troubled. He has some I guess feelings of loneliness, of sadness. He just kind of feels like tormented by something. He just doesn't feel good. He's very kind of depressed. He can't sleep at night. He's just a troubled, smart person, which tends to be what happens for most people, is that they're really smart, so that way they have a lot more sad emotions. And it's kind of like that sacrifice of, you sacrifice any kind of social interactions or like real bonding and connections for intelligence. You're super smart, but you can't talk to people. You can't hang out with them. You can't socialize in like a normal way that maybe other people can, who are, supposedly idiots, right? But it's neither here nor there. It's just like comparing his character, trying to understand, like, okay, he can't build friendships. He can't, it's very difficult for him. So obviously college is great for him because the smart follow smart. They bunch together, they group together because they're all trying to show off their intelligence. It's like when you see everybody in Harvard together with people in Harvard. You know what I mean? It's like people who go to Harvard, they have like their own exclusive clubs. They have their own exclusive stuff because they're all super smart and they're part of the group, and nobody's, they're smarter than you. And because they're smarter than you, they get their own things going for them. Because they have their own things going for them, they tend to group together. They bunch up and they follow each other's leads. So Oppenheimer, I don't know if he's in America or if he's in another part of Europe, but he gets invited to go to Europe for college. And Oppenheimer's like, yeah, sure, I'll go over there. I'll give it a shot. Why not? He goes over there, and I guess it goes well for him over there. He gets very well recognized. He meets some of his own people. I mean, not his own people, but he meets like some very smart people that he looks up to, or he kind of is like in awe of. I don't think that's the right sentence, but he's kind of just like, right word. Why did I say sentence? It's the right word. But he's in awe of them because they're so smart, they're so talented, they're brilliant, and they push it forward. They put like science theory or different theories about different kind of like physics and chemistry. They put it all forward. So I think after we kind of get like a preview of his life there, we get like a flash forward, or we move forward in time a couple of years. And it's at this point he's a professor. He's working at, I don't know the exact college. I think, I don't remember exactly what college he was teaching at. I'm trying to think if it was in California or if it was in some other place. I really can't remember, but he was in, whatever. You get the gist, right? He's a professor. He's older now, and he's just started a teaching position, and he's teaching a science class. And I really like it because he goes in there and he immediately meets with the what is it? The people who, the experiment people, the people in the lab, the people who actually test the theory out. So he goes in there and he comes with an idea, and then that's like essentially the room where they execute it. That's the one where they experiment, they test it, they put everything in a lab, and they do the thing, right? So that's where we are now. Is he's teaching one class on some sort of He's teaching I don't know if he's just teaching that one class, but he's teaching a class on a certain science theory with one student. And I thought that was like such a very humble beginning, because it also illustrates how new his kind of teachings are. It kind of points out to us that, they're completely different from what, obviously now, if a new class comes out, everybody's kind of like interested and intrigued. I don't know how many new classes are being taught like that. Or like, could you like imagine there was a class on, I mean, now we have a bunch of classes, but like there was a class on, let's just say there was a class on Texas history, right? I used to take a Texas. When I was in junior high school, I had to take a Texas history class because I was living in Texas in the time. And let's just say, long story short, let's just say that they started teaching a Texas history class at your college. It's a very new subject, and you're like, okay, let me go learn about it. Let me go figure it out. And you go over there and you try it out. You try to learn about it, and you come very enamored with Texas. You start learning about its history, and you're like, wow, Texas is great. Texas is so cool. There's a lot of history behind this place. The land is so different. It's so new. It's so fun. And that's how it felt in this science class, essentially, is that it was one student, and then it grew into more and more and more. And I like that. They also show Oppenheimer. He grows a little fond with the Communist Party, or he attends. They're not rallies. They're more just like, they're just hangouts. They're get-togethers with a bunch of people there. And that's where he meets Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh's character's in the movie. And they start discussing back and forth. And eventually they get into a relationship. And, dude, when they came up on the movie of them having... of them having just... It was just wild to see it. You know what I mean? And as I'm watching the scene, the sex scene, I'm watching it and I'm just kind of like, oh my goodness, like Oppenheimer is like, he's not doing nothing, he didn't even give my boy, he's not doing any of the work here. She's just doing her thing and he's not, you know what I mean? I was just kind of like, man, at least, give her something, pull out a move, make it work, buddy. But, obviously he didn't. And it, the scene turns out fine. But as she's on top of him, right, she then gets a revelation of like, read this book. And then he says the iconic line of that he kind of says in a speech or in like a radio address or television interview where he's like, I am become death. And I was just like, that's such a random moment to say it, or, for her to like say this. I thought it was so funny, but then you come to understand that was like the beginning of the relationship, and it kind of just to illustrate that kind of his mental state, kind of his emotional state, and where he is relationship-wise. Eventually he gets a wife and a family and everything else. So as he's teaching at the college and as he's going to these communist parties, he's hanging out with people, he gets into some trouble. And it's during this time he raises a couple of, I don't want to say a bunch of red flags, but it becomes very apparent or clear that maybe he's going to lose his job. And in this time, he gets met up with a proposition from a lieutenant somebody. It was Matt Damon's character. So Matt Damon's character comes through and he's like, hey, listen, man, we're thinking about, I don't know, building a bomb. Do you want to, build a bomb for the U.S. Army? And Oppenheimer's like, I guess, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm about to be fired here. Might as well try that job out. And I don't know, and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. I'm putting in my own words, but you know what I'm trying to say is like, he gets in trouble, he's about to be fired, or it looks like it's going down that road, and he gets thrown kind of a lifeline, or he gets propositioned to do something to help America in the broader sense. So he has to build a bomb for the U.S. Army. But he can't do it alone, he's not a one-man machine. He has to recruit other scientists to help him. So that's where the search goes. That's where it all comes down. So they make a plan. They're like, listen, people are not just going to show up to build a bomb. All right, we have to make it, if you want the best, you gotta search for the best. And the best usually means family, stability, people who are, capable of like living a life. You have to provide those things for them so that way they can come out to help build the bomb. And so he was like, what do you mean? And he's just like, listen, if you want the smartest people to come through, you have to build a community for them. And he's like, where do we build it? And he's like, New Mexico. All right, at least I think it's New Mexico. I think it's New Mexico. I'm pretty sure it's New Mexico. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but New Mexico. He's like, we're going to build this place right here, and once we build it, we're going to invite all the scientists over, and when all the scientists come over, we're going to have a town, we're going to have schools, we're going to have a place for them to, like, live and also work. and it all comes together in the end. So they get all the scientists together. They build the town, and then finally it's a race to build the atomic bomb. Because at the time, Nazi Germany was going on its, they were wreaking havoc. They were trying to kill everybody. They were trying to do whatever they wanted. And it was very much like, oh snap, we got to do something, but what do? We can't get in it, but if we do, how will we do it? And it becomes a big problem. So the Nazis are ahead by a couple of years. They've progressed so far in making bombs ahead of America that it becomes instant, it seems impossible for America to catch up, or for any way for them to have the enough time to make the thing to stop them. So because of that, you have to think to yourself, well, how do we win? And Oppenheimer explains it best. He kind of goes like, our only chance, our slim chance of beating them to the bomb is this, okay? What we have to do is believe that Hitler hates Jews so much that he's not going to look into that kind of science, because he talks about physics, or that kind of theory, or the kind of science that they're diving into as a Jewish education. And he doesn't like the Jews. So he's kind of like, that's our only thing, is he's not going to fund them. He's not going to give them the time, the resources to learn deeper and deeper and deeper to build these bombs more and more and more, because he doesn't like that kind of science. He doesn't like that kind of education. He hates it. So that's our only chance. So then it becomes, they need time. They need to get the math perfectly so that way they don't kill themselves or kill other people. And they need to practice the bomb, the explosion. So they have to be patient. And patience is because they have to get the materials needed. So I forget the exact, I think it's uranium, or they have to get the metal, or the certain things that they need in order to put it into the bomb casing, and then obviously make it explode. And in the meantime, while they wait for them to get that stuff, which will take days, weeks, months, however long it takes, right? Years. It will take time for them to get all of those materials. But until they do, they can constantly come up with ideas to make the bomb and make it work, or how to make it blow up. Because if not, well, then who knows what's going to happen. So they have to solve how to make it, and then they have to figure out, how do we make it explode? How do we create that reaction where it causes devastating, where it kills everybody essentially? How do we make that? And that's what they're doing this whole time. It's them trying new things, or testing new theories, or trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we do that? How does it happen amongst themselves? And because there's so many scientists working together, there's so many of them collaborating and working with one another, there's bound to be conflict. There's bound to be challenges. You can't avoid difficulty. That's not an option. You can't avoid it. There's always going to be butting of heads, and everybody trying to be like the smart one, or everybody trying to, I don't want to say show up one another, but because they're all after the same thing, but it's more so like, who's the better one, or who has the right idea, or this or that, right? So because of that, they butt heads a few times, and Oppenheimer kind of like resolves it. He kind of tells them, hey man, let's relax, all right? We're going to do this. We can do this. It's possible. So eventually, they're put on a deadline. They're put on a deadline, and they're told they have to produce results. If you don't come through with any results, then this whole thing is a waste of time, and they have to try something else. So then it becomes, okay, where do we blow up the bomb? When do we do it? And how are we going to make it possible? So they figure out we're going to do it out in the desert in the New Mexico. We're going to do it in the open field in New Mexico somewhere. All right. But we need to figure out how far we need to be from the blast to be okay, so that way we can test it and survive, not kill ourselves. And how high do we have to put the bomb up to drop it? And then how do we drop it? How do we hook it all up? How do we get it done? And then finally, it's the final test. And I thought it was all going to be right then and there. It's all gonna happen. That's the instant it all kind of becomes crazy. It's new. It's different. And a lot happens in that day. So finally, it's the day of the test, and they got to get it done some way, somehow. And eventually, it comes down to dropping the bomb, and they drop it. And then, boom. Or I think it was just silence, and you just see it. You just see the bomb. And in that moment, you're kind of like, wow, that is crazy, but the fire looks pretty cool too. And then you get the aftershock. You get the boom. You get the blast. You get the bright light. You get the mushroom cloud of fire and destruction. You get, everybody's like in complete shock and awe of it. And they're like, whoa, this is crazy. So they do it, and everybody's high-fiving themselves. They're like, yes, we did it all this time. And it's only then that we because we know history, or some of us know history, we can understand what happens next. But next is the aftermath. What happens after they made the bomb and they've successfully tested it, and that it's going to blow up. And they end up using the bomb, and Oppenheimer is just absolutely devastated. He's crushed. He's like, oh my gosh, what have I made something that's going to kill themselves. Like, this is crazy, So they blow up Japan, which is like terrible. And then Oppenheimer goes through this moral dilemma in his life where it's kind of like a bunch of, you can only imagine how it feels to create something and then it be used to kill, something to destroy, you know what I mean? Like the person who invented the gun. It's just, you know what I mean? It's crazy to think about, like a weapon used to protect and to save people, essentially, becomes a weapon of intimidation, a weapon of fear, a weapon to hurt and not do good things. So he has this moral dilemma. And there was that great scene with Truman. President Truman. Oppenheimer sits with him, and then he's just like, get him out of here. Don't ever bring that, what did he call him? He called him a specific thing. I forget what it was. He called him like a softie, or he called him like a crybaby. He called him a crybaby. He's like, don't ever bring that crybaby back in here. I was just like, dang, I hate you. That guy is not nice. I was just like, do you not understand the moral dilemma? But at the same time, I kind of understood what he was saying is like, nobody cares about who made the bomb, only who dropped the bomb. And on some level, I understand that. But on another level, it's like, he created it. And it's just like, it's crazy that his intelligence is used to kill, you know? It's like if our thoughts, if you wrote down on a piece of paper, you know, it's like a death note. If you wrote down somebody's name on a piece of paper and then they die, it's just like, oh, snap. You know, that's nuts. In the same way, he's the, Oppenheimer is the pen and paper, but Truman is the one writing the name, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So anyways, the movie's still not over, okay? I thought the movie was going to end with him making the bomb, but instead there's like a whole trial against Oppenheimer. And that was from Strauss, played by Robert Downey Jr., who does an amazing job in this movie as well. He just comes in and he just like goes crazy. And because of that, during this whole trial of stuff, it's kind of revealed that Strauss is actually the bad guy. Strauss is like trying to pin stuff on Oppenheimer, but Oppenheimer is kind of like taking it so that way he can throw it back in Strauss's face, which happens by this other guy, scientist, played by Rami Malek. Shout out to Rami Malek, man. He showed up on screen and I was like, all right, what's he going to do? What's he about to do? And he didn't speak. And I was like, where's the, it's Rami Malek. He didn't just come up to do a no speaking role, right? Or maybe they cut it out. But then he showed up at the end and he exposed Strauss for the fraud that, for the evil man that he is, the arrogant, the self-centered, the selfish, the just awful guy that he is. And then after all of that, it comes down to, it kind of comes back to the beginning because it starts off with Oppenheimer talking to Albert Einstein, and then it ends with him talking to Albert Einstein. And they have this discussion, this moral discussion about where they're going to go in their lives after this. And we kind of see like a bit of despair and sadness for the both of them, was where like their intelligence kind of backfires in that people don't really care about you anymore. It's about themselves, about selfishly absolving themselves of the guilt that they have, of the role they played in creating or being a part of something wrong. And so I feel like that it ended on a really good note with Albert Einstein. And I just enjoyed their discussions, because they're both really smart people that, I mean, obviously you can like look at, and Albert Einstein, but you don't know his relationship to Oppenheimer or what kind of things that they've really talked about. But in the end, I felt that the movie left it on like a perfect ending to the movie, which was understanding in that moment. It's not about Strauss. It's not about the bomb. It's about everything that's going to come after it then. It's going to be about war. It's going to be about nuclear deterrence. It's going to talk about everybody pointing a bomb at each other and saying, let's be at peace, otherwise we're going to drop this on you. Well, if you drop that bomb on us, we're going to throw another one at you. If you throw a bomb at them, we're going to throw a bomb at you, and then it comes all over the world. And it's just, it leaves you wondering and thinking to yourself, how can we, this bomb becomes a big issue, the biggest issue. And it makes you think, So, watching Oppenheimer, I thought it was a great movie. I had a good time. I would definitely watch it in theaters again. I thought it was completely unique. I like the transition between the gray, the black and white, and the regular color, just because you can kind of understand the different perspectives of it. And then obviously the dialogue is so back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It can kind of get a little choppy, but especially with the scenes, the cuts. But I like the ending dialogue with the trial and trying to understand the sequence of events and how everything kind of unfolds. I thought that part was really smart and brilliant. So I had a great time watching Oppenheimer. Great movie, good time, and yeah. I hope you guys went to go see it. I hope you guys went to go see Barbie as well. I saw Oppenheimer and Barbie at the same time. I haven't seen both movies since, but I probably won't watch them both again, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably choose maybe Oppenheimer, cuz Barbie I feel like is a lot of fun, but they were you could kind of understand that movie in one go. Whereas Oppenheimer, I feel like there were a couple of things I maybe missed, or I didn't right away grasp or get right at the beginning. So I might go back to rewatch it because maybe I'm just stupid or slow. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.